A ton of moves got TMs in the Pokemon Scarlet and Violet DLC expansion, the Teal Mask. There's 30 new TMs that you can craft, which means even more Pokemon that can use those moves. There's several moves that aren't going to shake up competitive Pokemon that much, a few that are notable but don't see much change, and a few that are going to be game changers. With competitive rule sets constantly changing, these TMs have the potential to make some old and new Pokemon exceptional, so we're going to go over which TMs are impactful and which Pokemon benefit from them. First up is a highly anticipated move that has had one of the biggest nerfs and damage we have ever seen for a move. Grassy Glide. When Rillaboom was reintroduced into Scarlet and Violet, it didn't get access to Grassy Glide. It only learns that move through TM, where it was first released in the Isle of Armor DLC for Sword and Shield. So for its competitive moveset, it relied on Wood Hammer and Drum Beating for strong stab grass type damage. Grassy Glide is a really unique piece of Rillaboom's kit because it has increased priority when grassy terrain is active, so there's a ton of synergy there with Rillaboom's ability. The damage for the move did get nerfed though, between Gen 8 and 9, going from 70 base power to 55, which greatly reduces its power. However, if you pair that next to a Champao and its Sword of Ruin ability, Grassy Glide actually does more damage than it would in Gen 8, so there are ways to make up for its lack of punch. Another Isle of Armor TM that got nerfed was Dual Wing Beat. It didn't get nerfed in the damage department, but rather which Pokemon get access to Dual Wing Beat now. Some of the decisions are interesting. Dragonite was one of the Pokemon that originally learned the TM in Sword and Shield, but could you imagine if it got that now instead of Terra Blast? Yeah, no thanks. So a few Pokemon like Dragonite and Charizard don't learn that move anymore, but it still has fantastic distribution. Talonflame, for example, can benefit from this because it can finally use a strong stab flying type attack without breaking its own Gale Wings or being forced to run no held item to pump up acrobatics instead. Kaito Ari is a famous Japanese player that won Japan Nationals 2023 with this exact strategy. Technician Scissor and even Scyther also benefit a lot from Dual Wing Beat's return. Onto a staple of competitive Pokemon, Knockoff. Knockoff finally returns as a TM and has been one of the best utility moves for years. It's a powerful Dark-type move that deals more damage if the target is holding an item, and it removes the target's item. Items are a huge reason why some Pokemon are as strong as they are. If you can knock off that pesky Assault Vest on bulky Pokemon like Iron Hands or Kingambit, then it's much easier to take them out. Knockoff can now be learned by two new powerful Pokemon, Roaring Moon and Tyranitar. Knockoff gives them a significantly more powerful Dark Stab move over Crunch and includes a secondary effect. Next up, we have High Horsepower, another staple of competitive Pokemon. This is a huge deal for ground-type coverage, especially with all of the Heatran we've seen running around. High Horsepower is a 95 base power, single-target physical attack, and a major upgrade over Stomping Tantrum and Earthquake for Pokemon like Rillaboom and Baxcalibur who wanted ground-type coverage. While not a meta-staple Pokemon, this is also a major boost to Revavroom as well. Before it was walled by Steel types, and now it has an easy way to deal with them, as long as the move connects. 95% accurate, by the way. Another group of struggling Pokemon is Water-type special attackers. Hydro Pump was by far the best attack, but is so incredibly unreliable, it doesn't feel good to bring. But now, the best water move in the game is back. That's right, we got Scald. Scald's base power and chance to burn have made the move super popular. The pool of Pokemon that have access to Scald has been massively reworked though, and is much more limited in its distribution. Strong older format Pokemon like Politoed, Ludicolo, and Pelipper have lost access to that move, which nerfs Rain as an archetype. Bulky water types like Milotic, Kudra, and Slowbro can make great use of this move. Let's not leave out the Ghostbusters. You know how items are a huge reason why some Pokemon are as strong as they are? With this next move, those items can work against them again when we look at Poltergeist, returning as a TM. Poltergeist is another TM that was introduced during the Isle of Armor Sword and Shield DLC. It is one of the strongest physical ghost-type attacks that exists, with 110 base power and the unique property that it deals damage by attacking the Pokemon with the item it's holding. Poltergeist won't work if the target is not holding an item, but that's a very rare circumstance, unless you knock off. Bramblegast and Ceruledge can make a lot of use from this move when they've previously needed to rely on Ghost Terra Blast or Shadow Sneak to get the job done. Don't worry, Dragapult does not get this move. Before we get into the final move that can really shake up competitive, here are some honorable mentions. These are moves that are noteworthy, but not game-changing, for various different reasons such as Pokemon distribution or relevance, but could have potential with the constant changes in rule sets. Haze is one of the best ways to reset big buffs to stats or stat drops that negatively affect you. It's a great Dondozo counter, and we've got Dusclops, Politoed, Weezing, and Milotic as strong Haze users. Toxic is also back, and there have been strategies over the years centralized around Toxic Stall. The TM is now far less widespread than it used to be in terms of who learns it, but with the Toxic Chain ability on the new legendary Pokemon trio, and the trend of Pokemon to continue to run more bulk, that strategy could absolutely come back. And then there's Gravity, a field effect move which increases the accuracy of all moves and grounds Pokemon on the field for 5 turns. This has always led to some funny strategies of things like Hypnosis spam, and now that Sableye has access to Prankster Gravity, that might open up the door for new possibilities down the line. Last but certainly not least, the final big returning TM is Lash Out. Lash Out is a dark type move that doubles in power if the user has had a stat lowered that turn. It's less of a deterrent for Intimidate drops than abilities like Defiant or Competitive. They get a permanent 2-stage boost, but in a format full of other stat drops like Icy Wind, some really important staple Pokemon can make great use of this move. Qianpao and Roaring Moon become much stronger with this option, especially looking at how this matches up versus Intimidate. King Gambit also gets this move, which means that you can get the +2 Defiant boost and a temporary double in power for Lash Out on the same turn, which I think just nukes everything. Let's also not forget about Ogerpon, but she's also going to get a whole video dedicated to her. It'll be so cool to see how the meta develops with all the new TMs and DLC content. Kommo-o gets access to Vacuum Wave, which gives it a priority fighting type attack. Bug Bite is a great bug type move for Scissors specifically, and Roar may even see some play in a future regulation where Xerneas is legal. Let me know what strategies you're trying out in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you soon.